hear all the concerns and suggestions. Of course, none of this is final, but I'm going to let the city manager do what you do.
Thank y'all so much for coming. It's never a small crowd as long as you're in here. I want to just talk about what we're trying to do, just like Councilman Smith said. Nothing is final. And one of the things we want to do, we want to make sure that we started redoing this ordinance so we can start a conversation. Let you all know what we're trying to do. One of the things I want to make sure you understand is this. We understand who we serve. We understand we serve the citizens of Anniston. We understand the quality of life. It is very important to the citizens of Anniston. So we're trying to find a way to make sure that we're doing all we can. First of all, we had an ordinance that was in place. And really the ordinance, we were not abiding by ordinance. We wouldn't have anybody abide by ordinance. And then when we started to enforce it, it would just cause so much chaos. And that's why I said, let's stop, let's take time out, let's have a conversation, let's let them know the reason what we're trying to do and what we can and can't do. One of the things that you're going to find out, I have a public works director, he's going to come and he's going to actually talk about that, expound on this a little bit more. But what I want to tell you is that once we get input from you all, I've already talked to our public works directors. There's a couple of things that already happened. The alley thing, we already understand. We're going to deal with alleys. We're going to retract that. We're going to actually pick up an alley. So we've already looked at that. That's one of the things we're going to do. Another thing that has happened, we also were able to get a couple of vehicles that are a combination of dump truck and pickup. And that's going to help us out a lot too. We're going to actually get 2 of those vehicles tomorrow. And that's going to help us be more efficient, because understand one thing that has to happen. These guys that pick up the brush and debris, that's not their only function. They have to do other things, help with the tree cut out, the tree division, and other things that we have to do. We'll also help when we're doing anything with the road. Public Works is multifaceted. So we're going to have a way to do this a little more efficiently. We're going to be able to, that one truck that does 2 things, we're only going to need 2 people to do something that otherwise we need 4 people to do. So we're going to get a lot more efficient on these things. One thing that we're going to talk about is the time schedule. There's no way we want to stay away from that. We're not going to concede and say we're going to put a schedule out, because that wouldn't be fair to y'all, because there's going to be acts of God. There are going to be things that happen that we can't hold up with a schedule. But what we are going to do, we're going to come up with a space there. We start on the north end and the south end at the same time, and they're going to move together, or either start together or move together. You will know the area they're in. And when they start in the area, they're not going to stop until they complete that area. So you have 2 going on either side of town, and they're going to continue to go on until they got some rain or anything happens. Wherever they stop, they're going to continue. And Jackson is going to be making sure that you see that schedule, you see where they are, and know that location where they are. So what I want to do now is give our Public Works Director an opportunity to just let you know what this is going to be, what we're talking about doing. And then I hope he gave you all a copy. Did you get a copy of this so you can actually take a look at what we're talking about? If you have a copy of it, let's make sure, we want to make sure you get a copy, everybody gets a copy so you can see exactly what we're talking about. And then once he gets through, then you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll fill those questions as much as possible. And then what will happen, we'll get your input, and the input we got last week. Then we'll go back and present the council a final copy. And then, but we will make sure we share that draft publicly before we send it out, and then the council will vote on it, but then they're aware we're ready for it. So I will have a lot of Public Works workers speak, and then our council members, Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Robinson with us tonight, will speak. But if you have anything for us, please let us have your questions at the end.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dave. I'm the Public Works Director. Do I need this, or am I loud enough?
Dave.
Okay. My wife tells me I'm loud enough, so I'm just going to go ahead and forego the microphone. Mr. Folks kind of brought you up to speed on the new ordinance. It went from 3 pages to 5 pages, but the 5 pages is only clarifying the previous 3 pages. We're keeping the same non-pickup items. We're clarifying the separation of debris, where your branches go, where your leaves go, and your grass grows. We're clarifying that going to keep a vacuum truck going all year, one vacuum truck all year. During leaf season, which will be determined by the city manager and myself, we will then be running 2 leaf vacuums. We're not going to put out dates like we did before because, well, we never adhered to them then. We probably wouldn't adhere to them now. So leaf season, as we all know, kind of varies with the weather. It's just what it is. Some of the better notes from it, as Mr. Folks talked about, we can't really do a schedule. Time is measured by volume when it comes to picking up debris. Debris is defined in the new ordinance as organic material like trees, branches, leaves, and grass. This ordinance does not deal with bulk trash. Bulk trash is not picked up by the Public Works Department. We're not picking up boxes, cardboard boxes, furniture, construction debris, construction waste, construction materials, however you want to label it. That is not stuff that Public Works was ever supposed to pick up. It's just something that we graduated into picking up. Alleyways, like Mr. Folks discussed, we have gotten a lot of feedback on that, and I mean, it's just a known evil that we're going to deal with. We're already dealing with it. Hopefully the addition of the 2 new trucks are going to help us with that pickup. We're going to continue with the appliance removal tags, $28 for a Freon appliance, anything that makes it cold or hot. Anything that doesn't have Freon is $5. We kind of go in and a little more specific on contractors. If you hire a contractor at your house, whether it be construction, a tree surgeon, a lawn care maintenance, a dishwasher repair, if you hire a contractor and they create waste, debris, appliances, whatever, they are required to take that with them when they go. The city is not going to pick that debris up off the side of the road. You're paying your contractor to take that with them. Other than that, that's all the high spots I have with the new ordinance. I'm going to sit down. I'm available for any questions.
If you have questions, you can come up to the front, or you can stand where you're
This
at.
is fine, if you can hear me. The first thing that I'd like to ask is how stringent are you going to be on these ordinances? Is there some gray area that's going to be involved in this? Simply because I'm going to speak mostly on leaf pickup.
Yes.
Leaf pickup can't always be put on an easement. Leaf pickup and sometimes has to be put on the streets. There's property owners up where I live that don't have an easement, they have rock walls. So it has to come off of there and be put into the street. We have a problem that sometimes things are put in the street and the code enforcement officer sort of gets her hair on the back stood up, if you know what I mean. So what I want to know is how stringent it's going to be. Is there going to be some gray area where you can work around these different problems with property owners?
When we're talking about debris in the street, whether it be household waste, branches, leaves, those cause traffic issues. Going down my road that I live on, my neighbors blow all their leaves into the street. They block off half the road. That is a traffic hazard. That is not an acceptable place to put anything for
What do you
anyone.
suggest? What do you suggest?
And that's something that we may have to come out and look at it and help you find that place, but the road is not the place for it.
Well, we had certain areas, I live on Sunset Drive.
Yes.
We had an area in front of Millie's house, right off to the side over there, that people would take stuff and put it there. And then we had another area down at the other end of the street where we put it, and then I guess we had possibly some property owners complain, so the code enforcement officer came out there, and once
Sure.
again, you know, the hair on the back stood up, and wanted to get at fines and things, so what we need to do, and I'm gonna tell you, I just came back from my place in North Carolina.
That's not got my cell phone number on it. You can call me on my phone.
In North Carolina, where we live, the county supplies a dumpster, large. In fact, you drive up and you drive down. They got 4 dumpsters on each side. They have 1 person manning it. It's totally free. Any debris that you have, any televisions, well, not really televisions. If they say if you can get it in a plastic bag, you can dump it. All free. Well, I suggest that we should do something like that. I don't have a problem paying $2 more for garbage pickup with a $2 extra going strictly for debris pickup. If we don't have enough money in the budget, then what we should do is raise the pickup charges. On the bill we get every month, just add $2 to it, and one's for garbage and, one's for debris pickup, or leave them and limb pickup, I mean, all can be solved, and I know that our area, and this is my daughter Becky, she has the same situation. They have a house up there and it's all covered in a rock wall, 4-foot rock wall. There's no place to put debris other than in her driveway, which is gonna block her driveway, or put it off into the street. It's a situation that has to be resolved, and, that's my main concern about it.
Yes.
Like 37 cents is a good example.
And yes, sir, that's a very small percentage of issues, and that's where I would hope you would call me, and we can come out and we can discuss it, and we can figure out a place to put it. But just deciding I have nowhere to put it, so I'm gonna put it in the street, that is a public nuisance. That's what the compliance officer is out there doing. That is a hazard to the public. So we do have to come up with something that's accessible and acceptable to you. So, I mean, definitely give me a call, let me come out there and let's look at it.
But what I want to say, Mr. Miller, because I understand anything that you do, anyone that's got, they're going to be mitigating circumstances. So that they should give us a day, we'll see what we can do, just like you were talking about the dumpster that you're referring to. We're going to have those also in orders, do new orders now. We're going to do it every quarter. We're going to have those dumpsters that we'll put in the community every quarter that you can actually dump into free of charge and put anything in there, and we're going to pick it up.
Well, I would also like to say that if we had a schedule that was being strictly adhered to, then it wouldn't cause a traffic situation because people would know exactly when to put the leaves and brush out and know that the city would be there the next morning to pick it up. Neighbors don't have to look at it, the cars don't have to drive around it, because you know exactly when the city's gonna be there to pick it up, just like you have a trash day. I lived in Jacksonville for 14 years, it was like clockwork. It was no problem to adhere to the schedule. I don't know why Anniston, is an anomaly.
I can't speak for Jacksonville, and I can't speak for Pell City where I was born and raised. They contracted it out, and they had somebody come in and pick up their debris. All I can speak for is my department, the equipment we run, the manpower we have. It is dependent on the volume that is out on the side of the road. So the larger the volume, the larger it takes you to get from point A to point B. So if we tell you every Thursday, and Wednesday, we had so much that we couldn't get all of Wednesday, well, then we would skip Wednesday to come to you on Thursday. And that's not an acceptable schedule for us to try to follow with the manpower and the machinery we have.
So in a
Again, I
perfect
know it
world,
sounds good.
what would be needed by the city to have
So-
a schedule strictly adhered to?
So now, I think, so what we're doing, Jackson is posting at the end of every week, a schedule of where the public works department is. And I know it's not ideal, but if in inclement weather, if it rains or anything happens, and you're in the middle and you stop, I mean, at what point do you start back? So what we're doing, that's why they're talking about we get away with the schedule. We get away with the schedule so we can continue along the path and work our way through. Now, it's not gonna be, debris is not gonna be on the ground as long as it would have been. But if you look at the schedule and see where we are, you just kind of see, you'll start to see a pattern of where they're going next. And so that's where we are with that. It's gonna be hard to pinpoint and lock down the schedule because unfortunately we've reduced our staff over the last 10 years, we've cut our staff in half. Because of just, the good of the city. So when we cut it in half, we ended up having to use our manpower to do other things. So it's gonna be, this way it's gonna work. Once we get all the kinks out, once we figure out a better route. See, right now, the routes that we're currently running, by the time we get the ordinance in, we may have to figure out how to rerun the routes or how to make it more efficient. But right now, we just need to put a better ordinance, we need to enforce the ordinance that's in place. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to make it more feasible and more economical for everybody.
And
Let me say this, because I think this will help out as well. We may get to the point where we can start a schedule once we get everybody understanding when you put brush out, you can't mix garbage and other things with the brush. Because then everything changes, because you cannot pick the brush up and put it into a garbage again. And one of the biggest things that we want to happen in this whole ordinance is that everyone will ensure that garbage and brush is not mixed together. It will be a whole lot simpler. Again, keep in mind, Jacksonville, the size of Jacksonville compared to the size of Anniston, where we are now, to put the funnel is a part of what we have to do as well. The garbage truck will say whenever they're going to pick up, but if we go, the truck goes to Sunset, say the rest of Sunset, then they start picking up. Then there's brush and debris mixed together, the brush and garbage mixed together. Then that means they have to sort out the garbage and go through those different things, and that slows down the whole process. So one of the things, the key thing, if we can get in this whole process that we don't mix garbage and we don't mix brush and all those things together, then maybe we'll be able to start the process of getting a schedule if we can become more efficient. That's what we'll be very helpful.
Well, this is just, again, going off of what I experienced in Jacksonville, they had a day for the garbage, and then they had the day for the leaves. It was, and everyone knew, if they had a couch to put out that the city was gonna pick up, they knew exactly what day it would be. So the whole neighborhood would wait until the day before so that all the neighbors don't have to look at whatever it is they're putting out.
Yes.
I'm not saying allow people to,
Key, you said the neighbors would wait when they knew the schedule.
right.
That was key right there.
But that's my point we're trying to make now. That's not happening now. No part of the time, everybody's throwing everything together. And expecting us to them to actually slip
Because
through.
they don't know when the city's gonna pick it up.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they put debris out and they mix, and then they'll take a garbage, or then they'll take a sofa and put it with debris. Then it becomes two things they have to do. They don't separate it.
And that might be an education aspect. Maybe people just don't know that you're supposed to separate those things. And that's on us to educate you all. Because that's what I'm getting from this conversation, that you all just don't know
Right.
what's supposed
Ours
to
is
go on.
always separated on our street.
And some people may not know that though. So I think that's also a key in this too.
Right. That's what we're trying to do in this case, because I think that's the thing, that's the problem that we're having. I don't think that, and as we even had this conversation, I don't think we distinguishing the definition well enough what's debris and what's leaves.
Yeah, she was raising her hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
sorry, a little later, I had to get off of work. I know I came a little bit late, but, I got not a Visa Johnson, okay? I got a two-story property on West Anniston that I, don't utilize, but I keep it kept up. I don't care what I do, somebody always come and dump right behind me because it's just like a alleyway or something like that, and then a bunch of brush. The city used to cut do, you know, 'cause signs don't help, you know. What can I do to keep people from dumping over there? I went and installed the brightest LED light right in a pole. So my area be secure, but I still got people that come in there and dump, you know. And see, that to me, like, that's on me, you know. But I don't even, do the board and trash of that property, but I still pay. Been paying for 5 years, haven't used that property to protect it on. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, ma'am.
So what can I do about the dumping? And it's rapid. You remember, Mr. Folks, you was talking about they keep shooting that light out back there?
Yes, ma'am.
It's over at that property.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Councilmember Smith hit the
No,
key.
I'm around.
Councilmember Smith hit the key thing, education and helping us out. Because we got a dumping problem all over the city. People are just taking it up and dumping on the sidewalk. We got a McCollum, they're just on the right of way. They're dumping stuff on the right of way. Some said they had a place all in the back where they're just dumping stuff, the people dumping stuff. This is all this, magnified, this is all over the city. I mean, we actually had our Anniston changes, we go into the Norwood area to clean up the area, and then you go out to the next week, and it's people dumped again. But when people dump that stuff, Public Works has to stop what they're doing and get these things up, especially if it's a hazard. So we just got to educate more. That's what we hoping could come out of this, because what you said, that's just one of the many dump sites that people are just dumping stuff on. I mean, it started on the phone last month, where people are actually on the side of the road, by the German cemetery, where people are just dumping sofas and everything on the side of the road. Just dumping them out. This happens all over the city. Dumping them on the side of the road. When that happens, they have to pull off a certain place and have to continue to shine and do these things. Again, education is key. Like I said, I think what you have in Jacksonville, you can have people that are educated in the neighborhood are educating each other. That's what's going to have to happen. So we can get efficient enough, so we can start getting rid of the route. But right now, I don't want us to happen. By the time, I don't want us to say we're going to be there one day and something happens and we're not there, because then that causes other things. But what I like to do is, if it's safety or health and welfare or something like that, reach out to Public Works and they will deviate for anything that's safe or health. But otherwise, we just got to educate, change the culture. We have created a culture here that we must change in order for this to work.
Security cameras, I mean, a couple years ago, we were talking about security cameras when we was over there in that, Paul Center thing. Remember, we were asking for suggestions and all of that, and I never heard anything else about that. Security cameras at certain places.
We have so many that's happening now. Security cameras, what's going to happen? Somebody's seeing somebody dump something.
Somebody
Somebody
dump
dump
Because
something.
those should be the people paying the extra,
Yeah.
not the people that pay their bills on the regular and good taxpayers and going by the citizens and all that kind of stuff.
No, it's a little bit
Yeah,
there.
lights, it's dark and.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I reside in Ward 4, and just riding over here today, we passed down a long street, couches in front of houses, tires in front of houses, kiddie pools, mattresses, 2 different houses with mattresses, boxes everywhere, because people are ordering things, and so all the cardboard boxes and all the styrofoam is out in front of that. So are you gonna pick all this up? Because I'm telling you, people do not know these rules. Unless we get a copy of this in every household, it will continue because they think it's okay to just throw all this out in the trash.
That's what we need help in education. Now, keep in mind, whenever the council passes that ordinance, we're not going to say we're not going to pick this up. Because we don't. That's what we're trying not to do. We don't want the city to look like a garbage dump. We're going to say this is when we're going to actually start enforcing this, and hopefully, with Jackson putting this out, and council members putting it out to their constituents, and continuing to have the conversation, everybody hopefully be educated enough to understand when we start actually enforcing this ordinance, everybody will be educated enough to understand what's not there. But I understand what you said. We can't just leave it there now. We're not going to just leave it there.
So a good form of educating people are direct mailers. So what you have in your hand right now, what we could do is send what we have in a form straight to your home.
I think it needs to be that way. That's the only way you're
That
going
was
to
the plan.
because, I mean, most people don't go on the website.
Yes, ma'am.
And look at things.
Some some people don't have Facebook or, yeah, I understand.
Every household, and
That is the plan. That is the plan. We're gonna mail it out. Jackson, we've already have a plan in place. He's getting all the mailing addresses, what's gonna happen with the water bill or whatever it comes out with. We're gonna make sure one goes to everyone's house.
And my next comment is, I've lived in Anniston since '73. Recycling has been thrown around forever. People are not gonna make it happen to take these boxes that we see out the side of the road, break them down and haul them off to somewhere, put them in the dumpster. Do we have any conversation going on about curbside recycling? I mean, my sister lives in a little bitty town in South Alabama. And at 80 years old, she recycles because she can put it out on the curb and have it picked up. I mean, I don't understand why all these years we can't do something that people don't have to load their cars and haul them somewhere to recycle.
Yes, ma'am, that conversation has been going on, and we will continue to have that conversation. Because you keep in mind that when Dixon, we used to have a recycling bin there. You used to have a recycling bin on the phone. You used to have a recycling bin over here. But you know what was happening? Couches, chairs, everything except recycling. So that's why the county is responsible for the recycling bin. That's why they pulled them out.
Well, I can understand the bins, I mean, it's just a dump off place, and most of the time you go and they're full of ticket stuff in there anyway. But if we had, I mean, my son has lived all over the United States, and practically everywhere he's lived, you have two garbage bins, one for your household garbage, one for your recycling. They're the same size, different colors, you put them out, and it's very easy, you know, all your trash in that recycling bin, and your household garbage in the other. If we're willing to do that, but they're not willing to load up their car and haul stuff, so.
Except glass. They never accept glass. That always bothered me.
But I mean, that, I think that would help with some of it, because that way people would be more willing to do their boxes if they just got a big garbage can they smash it into.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I just wanted to ask a couple of follow-up questions to some of the things that have been mentioned. She mentioned, I also live in Ward 4. She mentioned the bulk trash, which you're saying this ordinance clearly outlines that that is not, the city's not going to pick up, which I think is totally fine. I don't think the city should have to. Furniture, boxes, that kind of stuff, mattresses, I mean, it's become a real issue, and it sits for weeks, and it gets wet, and it's piled on the sidewalk. And so if, my question is, as a follow-up, if this ordinance, now, I just got it when I got here today, the revised one. I could not attend the meeting last Thursday, we were out of town, so I just read it sitting here quickly. But I didn't see anywhere in there, it says you don't pick it up, but people are gonna continue to put it out if you don't find the homeowner or it being there.
Yes, ma'am. Any city ordinance that is passed, if you do not follow that ordinance, it is a class B misdemeanor. So, that, just because it doesn't have a fine process or a punishable process in the ordinance, doesn't mean that it's not an offense. The city is not gonna go out and start issuing citations day one for this, that, or the other. We're going to do our best to educate, to help, to send out a letter or leave a letter with, hey, we're gonna need you to abate this condition, to fix this condition. We're gonna have a long process before we just start slapping people with fines. That's never a good idea.
Well, I mean, I just feel like if there's no teeth to this ordinance, it's going to continue. And that's just a fact. I love the idea of the direct mail, using the waterworks list or whatever, and summarizing this ordinance. We have notified every resident of the ordinance and what it entails. I agree that on day one, you don't need to, but in my personal opinion, if you don't stick it to somebody with a $500 fine because it's been on their lawn for 5 days and it's not something the city picks up, people are going to continue to do it. And that's just, it's sad, but it's true. And I think the city needs to acknowledge that it's becoming a real problem in some areas. And, you know, in some cases, like this young lady over here, she's not there all the time. It's hard for her to control what's there. A lot of these issues are rental houses that people are turning over and people are moving out and they're sticking them on the curb. And in my opinion, it's not the city's responsibility to pick up furniture and mattresses and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't have some teeth to your rules on a piece of paper that nobody's gonna follow. So I'd like to recommend that we, look into that. I understand that it's a Class C misdemeanor, I understand you saying that, but I do feel like, notification is a great idea with the direct mailer, and I feel like you got, not on day one, but you got to work into this, and I don't mean 6 months to a year, I mean 3 to 6 months. I mean, let's not drag this on, because it's just going to get worse. So that was my first question, was the fine, which you clarified it'll be a Class C misdemeanor. And I feel like when a car's on the side of the road, when a state trooper walks by, they tag it and say, hey, this has been here, you have 2 days to move it, or you're fined, or 2 days to move it, it's a Class C misdemeanor. The police are out anyway, the state troopers are out anyway, they get those little sticky notes, they stick it on the car as they go by, you can stick it on a piece of furniture when you go by. So there are efficient ways to handle the enforcement of that, I believe. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention, I know we've talked a lot about the schedule, and I totally understand that volume, number of trucks, number of manpower. I've been managing manpower for 50 states in Guam for 24 years, so I understand how that works. But at the same time, I do feel like you would alleviate so many problems if there was a schedule. Because, and I realize that it might be a volume. So on this day, you might have 3 people who work overtime on this day, and I understand that's time and a half. I mean, I totally understand the budgetary constraints that we're speaking of. But at the same time, you're also going to have days where your volume's a lot less than you thought. So they're going to work fewer hours on that day. I feel like some very good points have been made that this stuff will not sit there as long if people know that's the day that it's going out. They're not going to put their leaves, they're not going to move their brush to the street until the day before, because they know it's going to be picked up the next day. And I totally understand that one day, if there's a big storm, and there are a lot of trees down, it may be longer, and those may be exceptions, but that's the exception rather than the rule. So I think more often than not, the schedule would actually alleviate problems. And when there's a storm, I think people certainly understand there's been a big storm, there's lots of brush, they're trying to keep up. Well, some people, let me rephrase that. But I do feel like a schedule would really actually, I know you say you can't keep up with the volume and you don't know what the volume's going to be on this street and that neighborhood, but I do feel like in the long run, it would help. You know you have 1 truck or 2 trucks or 6 guys or whatever, so you can estimate, and after a couple of weeks, I think you would be able to get a system in place, and I do think it would alleviate so many problems if you had a schedule. I understand your reasoning for thinking that you just can't do it, but you can do it. It may not be as often. It may be that you only pick up once every 2 weeks on that neighborhood instead of once a week. You can do it with whatever manpower you have. It may not be the frequency that everybody wants, but I think people would appreciate the schedule enough to respect the frequency that you could provide. And so I just think it's not a good use of our resources to go, well, we're going to start here, we're going to work our way in, we're going to work 6 or 8 hours, and when we get done, we're going to stop, and we're going to do it again. So people in the middle, stuff is sat there for 3 weeks now. And if they'd known, they wouldn't put it out till the day before, and it would alleviate. I think you mentioned your streets and having to weave around. I think that in the long run, you would find that a schedule is actually more efficient for managing this. So I just wanted to share my thoughts.
I totally agree 100%.
I
And contingency plans can be put in place for storms.
totally agree with you all, and we're talking about the efficiency of schedule first coming forward. But first of all, we want to try and change the culture. Once we change the culture, then we can embrace it. I really feel that. I think that can happen with our new vehicles and trucks that we have and run more efficiently. But right now, we just want to start, and then we can figure out how the schedule is going to happen. I understand what you're saying, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Over time, there's other things that go on as well. But I don't want to pigeonhole us in the schedule until we actually change this culture. And once we change this culture, then we'll start with that schedule will come forthcoming. But I think you're totally right.
Oh, I'm just seeking a clarification on one thing. You said at the beginning of the meeting that y'all are relenting on the alleyway issue.
Yes.
Does that mean that in the first draft you say no pickup in alleyways, and now you pull back from that, and you will pick up in
We heard
alleyways.
what we said, we're gonna pick up in alleyways unless the mitigating circumstances way we can, but we are gonna do that.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been here for the same place that I've lived in for 40-some years. And years ago, we used to have the program where you get a red tag. I think it cost you $5. You put the red tag on the item that you wanted the city to pick up, and they would come and pick up. Why did we get away from doing that?
Thank you.
That's why we're having this conversation, right?
It was because it was not enforced.
It was not enforced. We had an ordinance. That's why we're
Things
talking.
started being allowed, and it created a culture of
Where we are now.
entitlement, and that's really what it was. Because this ordinance has been in place since 2001.
Well, I know,
So-
years ago, I mean,
Yeah, I agree. And that's city's fault for not educating people on what these things need to happen. So I'm 100% with you.
Actually, we're here to say a lot of that burden's on us. Because when I read this thing, we got an ordinance that we have not been enforcing. If we have not been enforcing it, that's as much our fault. That's why we want to educate, so we're not going to come and do all of a sudden because we can have much blame as everyone else. That's why we want to sit down and have this conversation and say, we're going to send it out so everybody can see it. We're having these conversations, so when we start enforcing it, everybody knows what it is. But again, you all didn't know, and that's why we're trying to make sure that everyone knows before we start enforcing it. But they understand this is what's required. If people don't understand expectations, there's no way you feel they're going to meet them if they don't understand what the expectations are. And that's what we're saying. I'm standing before you as the city manager saying, we dropped the ball on that. And that's why we're trying to make sure that whatever we put in place, everybody knows what we put in place before we start going over enforcement. But we got to get somewhere so our city's not looking like a dump. And that's what we're doing. That's what we don't want to happen.
And I think that what I also want to add to this is what we don't realize that in the last few decades, our city's budget has decreased, our city's staff has decreased, and our city's population has decreased. So what may have happened in the 90s or the early 2000s, we are in a new situation where we have to find some viable solution to this. This is not some issue that just came out of nowhere. This is just now, we're just now having this opportunity to really have a discussion on how we can fix it. So I don't think this ordinance is being created to say, we're not picking up your stuff. That's not what it is. But how can we find a more efficient way to do it where we're compromising the community and the administration?
And let me just say, so when we first took office, we had a retreat, and one of the first things I raised my voice to say was, hey, what are we going to do about us picking up trash on one side of the city and not the other side? And all the councilors, Jay and Millie, they said the same thing. Said, yeah, we're having that same problem. So only to find out the things that we're asking to be picked up should have never been being picked up in the first place. So we got away from it. Now, the hardest part about getting away from the ordinance that was in place is educating the people, educating our citizens, and letting them know, hey, I'm fighting for you, but I can't fight for wrong. We have to do our part in placing things in their proper place, and the city will be able to come by and do an easier part and do their job. Yes, we're being paid. Yes, we're paying people to do these jobs, but I can't make you do something that you don't want to do. If you don't want the city to be clean, let's keep throwing stuff all together and let it's taking us a longer time, and we'll keep complaining. If we start to understanding why we need these things separated. I was astounded when I was told that the city annually spends $120,000 extra in extra landfill fees. $120,000 could go a long way to the budget. So I jumped out there head first. I mean, I said, I'm gonna get this city cleaned up, only to find out we've been doing favors and letting things slide. And now what we were doing as a favor now is a detriment.
And what we're not seeing, I mean, the issue are big bulky items like couches and washing machines and stuff. But y'all, this is trash on the road, like food boxes, like stuff that can be thrown in the trash can. This is straight neglect in some areas. So that's where the compromise has to come in with the community. We understand that we want a clean environment. We want to show that Anniston is a place that you want to come visit, that you want to come tour, that you want to come live. But there has to be some meet me in the area, like meet me in the middle, some way. And that's just my point of view of it.
And one thing Councilmember Smith made a point of, and I want you to wrap your head around this because I just want you to understand where we're coming from. Even though our population has declined, even though our staff has declined immensely, our square mileage has expanded. We have picked up Blue Mountain. We've picked up Fort McClellan that we didn't have all the time. So we've picked up more square mileage, but we have less population and less personnel. We're still responsible for that square mileage. So those are the things that we're talking about. Not making excuses, but I want you to understand what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it more efficient. We're trying to ensure that your stuff is picked up, but we just want to make sure that, for instance, everybody knows you can't go to a tire shop and dispose of a tire without paying for it. Everybody knows that. It's an environment that's unsafe. You can't go and drop a tire off to the dump, and the dump, you got to put it in a certain place. But when people throw it on the side of the road, we have to go through everything to make sure that tire is environmentally correctly disposed of, because you just can't dispose of a tire. These are the things I'm saying that has to happen, that you have to change the way you're doing things because people are not doing what they're supposed to do. That's why we just want to make sure we're educated so we can help one another, so we can actually get back, so we can get a clean city and do it more efficiently.
Ms. Kelly?
Could you give me some more clarification on the alleyway, because that's where I put my, when I write my leaves and stuff, that's where I always put leaves and limbs and stuff, which is not a whole lot of limbs.
Yes, ma'am.
But me and my neighbor, it's only 2 houses on my side of the street, and we always keep our area clean. As far as, we don't sit no washing machines and couches and all this stuff outside.
Thank you.
Probably get people to pick that stuff up, but anyway, give me clarification on the alleyway and how they're gonna be picking it up.
We're gonna be
I mean, from picking it up to where they didn't pick it up, but we had called to get them to pick it up. And, that's just how it is. But give me clarification on the alleyway.
We're still doing alleyways. Let's get it. Yes, ma'am.
Got a question about storm damage and stuff, like, I had a few trees that fell down, and I thank God, I knew some people that could help, and I was getting them up. But at the end of the day, because of the fact, like I said, I don't live with the property, and I have a maintenance guy that comes on a regular day, every other week. They put stuff neatly on the side of the road. Will we be penalized for that, or do I need to tell them to put it back, then pay them again and put it on the edge because it's deep?
What we're saying is if it's a contractor, the contractor should take the debris away with him. If it's your contractor, he should take it with him.
Well, so I won't be paying for trash, is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am, I'm saying if you've got a contractor that's taking debris away, that contractor
I
who,
mean, it'd be like a little bit of pile of leaves or whatever, because the yard ain't that big,
yeah.
and that's still a problem.
That's if you have a contractor, that's what the ordinance is gonna say. If you got a contractor, the contractor should take the debris with him.
I mean, I pay my taxes and I pay my bills on time. I got one property, I don't even live in it, and I still pay for that one. Never use it, and still pay, because I'm an Anniston citizen right now. And have volunteered in the past to help clean up the community with kids.
Yes, ma'am.
Been doing it for years, you know that.
Yes, ma'am. Well, only one thing I want to do, I want to answer correctly what the ordinance is going to state. Yes, sir.
So if I hear you correctly, if you have a yard service cutting your grass or blowing your leaves, that he has to take that away or you could be fined?
That's what the ordinance is stating.
So what's the purpose of having the
He can't take.
Well, I mean,
put the leaves
if you put it where y'all pick it up, y'all
But what
just
he
pick it
said,
up
if you
regularly.
bag it up, and just like I use, as long as he bags it up and it's put in the right place, you're fine. But I'm talking about if we're talking about a tree, that's something different.
Yeah.
I
But
said we had a storm. That was different.
Oh,
Oh, yes, ma'am. We
Yeah.
talking about a tree, but we're talking about if you got your contract, he bags your leaves and put them where they're supposed to be, they're gonna be picked up.
Yeah.
They're gonna be picked up. If you got somebody doing that, but when we talk about contractors, somebody, I don't consider working your yard or cutting your grass a contract. That's somebody cutting your grass. But what we have is when people come and they actually go in and do some work in your house, tear out the wall, and we put that on the side. Those are things like we're talking about. Just cut down trees and put all the trees on the side of the road. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're saying, a contractor.
I wouldn't do that, you know, I don't know.
We're just talking about, I thought you were talking about trees.
No, I was talking about, I can't be there, it's a business. Okay, so I have somebody cut the grass who is a professional, and they cut the leaves and stuff, but I was saying earlier about a lot of times in that area when we have, you know, storms, tornadoes, hard wind or whatever, trees are falling. Alabama Power comes, just cut stuff and leave it.
Okay, that's two different things. If Alabama Power leaves the debris, let somebody know if Alabama Power does that. Let someone know.
Okay, well, that's not what's said in the ordinance, Mr. Phelps.
It's not at all.
That's not at all what is being said in this proposed ordinance. And that's okay, because that could change. Yeah, it just says in the event that the city is required to clean, sweep, or remove any such materials from the public streets, alleyways, easement, property, the city shall charge and collect a fee from the contractor, business, or person performing the work to reimburse the city for its costs for cleaning, sweeping, and removing materials.
And I think we need to distinguish that, because that's really when we're talking about somebody going to ten walls.
Okay.
So let's talk about that.
That's simple, then.
Yes.
All right.
Any more questions?
Any more questions, concerns?
Any-
Any more questions, concerns? Ladies, y'all got any? Y'all good?
Thank you so much. This has been very helpful on what we were talking about today. Thank you so much for your input. And please, you know, if you go to our Facebook page, you can get in contact with anyone in here if you want to talk about something, just to mitigate circumstances.
And our website.
I'm going to listen to the council person if they have anything else to say.
I just thank you all for coming. This is really my first opportunity to be able to really sit with people who are willing to come and have a conversation. And this is really what it's all about. We're supposed to create policy and ordinances that should really positively impact this city. So I just really appreciate you all coming out here.
I also want to thank everybody for coming out. I think last week, when the press conference was held in one form, I think there was a misnomer that we weren't all on the same page. To me, I think it was just a miscommunication. We wanted to make sure we got all of our kinks on one time. But we were going to have these meetings at some point in time. Please, ma'am, please, sir, please understand that your Anniston City Council is working together. When we put out messages, we have all been briefed, we have all been given the same information, and have come to some sort of conclusion. We may not always be in agreement, but we are well aware of what's going on, and we have every intention on trying to keep all citizens and all wards very well informed of all changes and policies that we have in place. God bless y'all, thank y'all for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.